Hello everybody, and welcome back to Dungeons & Dragons The Second Age. How are we doing?
Hello.
It's not really a question, an answer as to how we're doing, but it's
No.
How are we doing? Okay, how are we
How are
doing?
you? Hello.
Okay,
I'm
I'm no
great.
longer bleeding. There we go, that's how I'm doing.
Oh.
Congratulations. So,
Do you need healing?
No, I'm fine.
It's a healer to
since last week, you guys have leveled up. Well, some of you have leveled up. So you had already leveled up.
Yeah.
So can anyone give me a brief summary of everything that happened last week?
We were already at the Druid Circle when we started, but we got the sort of a mission from Lysatis to because a woman went missing in the town we met Lysatis, and there was a wild hunt group that went after her, and they never reported back. So Lysatis was just like, "You guys check it out, and I don't have to do it. And if I don't have to do it, then I can focus on these notes, right?"
Yes.
And so we went looking for them. We encountered this like a whole bunch of cultists surrounding close to a weird hole, and the cultists were the one that had attacked Arya previously in the night. Well, we're planning to attack all of us probably, but
Yeah.
Well, they did attack all of you, just incredibly
did.
ineffectually.
yes, indeed. So we kind of beat their ass and then had a very long talk with the not the leader, but like a mildly important person, and they basically sort of revealed that they were
Mildly important. Mildly important.
not a VIP, but like
Yes.
an
No,
MIP.
definitely
The-
not a VIP.
The ranking member of the small band of would-be assassins, because she happened to be a spellcaster.
Yeah, and she basically revealed that she had her soul basically belonged to like some demon or whatever the fuck, and even if we killed her, she would come back in some sort of way or form. So we did kill her, and we were just like, well, it's not much we can do about that. And then we basically went down the hole to look for that woman that we initially set out to look for. And we found this like warlock guy who served the Winter Queen.
Queen of Air and Darkness, yes.
Yeah.
Who is also what was the winter-aligned princess of the Fae.
Right. So we eventually killed that guy, and he was like, "No, this can't be," all anime style.
Yes.
So anime.
That's a lie, though.
What it was?
He had a very anime death from being shot in the chest and staggering backwards and going, "Impossible!" and then dying.
And yeah,
Money.
we found the lady, and we have escorted her back to the town,
Yes. Yeah.
and I think that was kind of it.
Yes, you ended having arrived back in Simmandel.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Right. Yes. Some things that I forgot to mention as you travelled back, because it took you at least half a day to get here. The woman you rescued eventually sort of gets far enough from the hole and comes to her senses enough that she introduces herself to you all as Valwyn. And yeah, basically everything that she tells you that she remembers confirms the story that you heard from Lysatis about her basically being kidnapped whilst out in the forest. Yeah, and as you sort of arrive back in Simmandel after it's probably getting towards sort of a late evening time. The sun is probably like beginning to set over the tree line. you arrive back on the borders of Simmandel, where you are met by a handful of Wild Hunt, who are quite clearly acting as a guard patrol. And seeing you arrive with Valen, they quickly rush to your assistance. They sort of help to take her back, and one of the Wild Hunt members mentions that you should report what you found to the person who is currently in charge here, who they tell you to look for a gruff-looking wood elf by the name of Kior, and to ask you to fill him in on everything that's happened.
Alright.
Yep.
Okay, we do that.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, we need to find him first.
Well, you remember seeing a Wild Hunt compound made up of sort of like a series of buildings and tents and outdoor practice grounds. So you head in that general direction. Where you very quickly find the elf that they are presumably referring to. As you meet, basically in the middle of the... In fact, you probably hear him before you see him. There is a fairly gruff and grizzled-looking wood elf standing in the middle of the practice ground, who seems to be issuing some sort of like spear training drill to several of the recruits. As you approach, he turns towards you, eyeing you with a sort of a look that he's obviously he's never met you before. He's not quite sure what to make of you, and as he eyes you, you notice that basically across his left eye there is a very deep, very intimidating-looking scar that comes basically from the crest of his forehead right down to just above his mouth on his cheek, which causes him to basically have a permanent, like, lopsided squint. He basically takes you in, stops drilling the recruits for a moment, and sort of indicates to you to sort of speak your business. Who's going to speak out?
What was the woman's name again we rescued?
Valwyn.
Okay, in that case, I'm just gonna go. We've been told we should inform you of Valwyn's return.
Immediately, sort of like his look of concern sort of disperses slightly. He stands up sort of straight and says, right, well, are you responsible?
Yes.
He immediately reaches out towards you with a hand.
Shake his hand?
Yeah. Yeah, like he shakes your hand and says, wow, thank you very much. Any sign of the other members?
Unfortunately not.
We know they're dead.
Yeah, we know they're dead.
So they're dead.
Like very dead.
There was
Well,
a sign of them.
even worse, you know they were transformed into the creatures that you fought.
Yeah, we'll just tell them. We'll just tell them they're dead.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't need to know the gory
Yeah.
details.
Yeah.
He
Unfortunately, they are. They have been killed.
Yeah, he grimaces and nods and says that is unfortunately as I had suspected.
But hey, 1 out of the 5 or whatever is not a bad ratio, I guess. I don't say that.
I was gonna,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was about to ask.
I don't say that in
They-
character.
No, he sort of looks grim for a moment and says, "Well, at least the girl made it back. That's at least we can call that a victory." He says, "Forgive me, I don't know your names or your business. Presumably you know mine. I am Kior."
I guess we introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just sort of give him your
Yeah.
names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he sort of he politely greets all of you and sort of shakes hands with all of you. And he says, "Well, you have my thanks. Presumably you are bounty hunters, mercenaries?"
No.
Looks
No.
sweet.
More simple adventures.
Come to my ass.
Mercenary.
He's gonna lean over and go, "What's a bounty hunter?"
I'd cross that off your bingo list.
Well, I'd say you've met bounty hunters before.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, yeah.
We've
Did you
also
know
met
who they
werewolves.
were?
Well, they were bounty hunters. The werewolf hunters were bounty hunters.
Mm.
Hmm.
What's that bounty?
He sort of when you say simply adventurers, he just sort of looks at you and he's sort of like there's a look on his face that sort of says same thing. And he says, "Sorry, perhaps my message was not clear. I presume you're expecting to be paid."
Uh,
I don't think we were actually.
No, I don't think we were at all.
I guess Vondal said not particularly.
You
We
haven't.
were just doing a favor for someone who's doing us a favor.
Well, you haven't explained that to him.
All right. Actually, we were doing it as a favor to what's her face? What's her name?
Lysatus.
status.
Lysatos. In exchange for some research of hers. So no, actually, we weren't expecting to be paid.
Well, when you mention Lysatus, he sort of he there's a look of realization. He's sort of like, "Oh, right, I see. Sorry, forgive me." And he sort of says, "Well, yes. In that case, thank you even more so for getting involved in something that didn't really concern you. I was hoping Lysatus might go herself, but I guess she selected you instead." He's sort of not really sure how to say thank you any more than just sort of saying thank you. So he reaches into sort of a thing on his belt and he says, I can reimburse you for any troubles if you need something.
I mean, it's really fine. It's really okay.
Are you sure there's a pouch set aside specifically for the safe return? He sort of puts it away again, and he sort of says, "Well, it's not often we see that sort of charity around these parts."
Believe me, we're loaded.
Well, some
You
of us
say that in
are.
character.
Well then,
No, I don't say that in character.
fuck's sake, Luka. You need to get a hold of this.
Look, we
Some of us
are
a lot more
though.
loaded than
You
others,
need to
but
sort
yeah.
out this problem you have of just.
He
Look, it's fine.
Ugh.
Yeah, he sort of says, just, unkind. He says, well, perhaps when my shift is over, perhaps I can buy you a drink. I must admit, I'm sort of at a loss of what to say. I was, well, frankly, I was not expecting this to be resolved for some time, and I was expecting an unhappy ending.
Well, I mean, it's not happy. Exactly.
No, you are quite correct. Sorry, forgive me. And he sort of lowers his voice and he says, considering all of the situations in the forest when several people went missing for, well, quite a number of days, I was expecting a body count more than a report.
Mm.
Things are are dangerous out there these days, even for the hunt, I'm afraid.
The night is dark and full of terrors. Ah! Anyway.
Well,
Okay, you're ruining my immersion.
I'm sorry.
You're ruining my immersion.
Yeah, he offers to buy you a drink later if you are around, which you are beginning to think is quite a good idea because it is beginning to get quite dark, and being on the move again doesn't sound like a fantastic idea.
No.
hmm.
To the tavern!
Away.
Yes.
Da-la-la-la-la.
Yes, you head back to
Wow.
the Autumn Wyvern, which is the tavern you stayed in previously. Yeah, so maybe an hour or so passes, and after a while you see Kior and a handful of other Wild Hunt members come into the tavern and sort of buy some drinks, and Kior spots you and orders a round.
Woo, apple juice.
Yay!
Juice, right? Apple juice.
Okay, yeah, he treats you to a round of drinks.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, like after he buys your drinks, he sort of sits down at your table, sort of as the kind of person who sort of sits down and just sort of like, I'm not really sure like where do we go into this conversation, but he sort of looks around you and says, so sort of what business brings you this far into the forest? I must say I've never seen a party of yours quite so well, diverse before.
Well, we're mostly here just to see Lysatis, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Sort of looks you over and says, does that make you researchers, or...?
No.
Well, we're more on a sort of personal quest, and we need Lysatis' help.
He nods and says, oh, right, I see. Everybody give me, I guess, an insight check?
Yeah.
Boy.
Okay.
I've been outplayed.
Outplayed.
Ouch.
Wow, we have such good insight checks in our party.
Yeah, we're really,
know,
we,
right?
we
We're
know
all
what's
so wise, but so dumb.
up. Shut up.
Look.
Silence, you fool.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, Vondal literally rolled an 11 on that, but it was a fucking 17.
From the way he sort of he's eyeing all of you, particularly Vondal and Kelariis. You suspect that he's sort of like he has a degree of personal curiosity in what it is that you're doing, particularly because you guys are sort of like so heavily armed and armored.
Yeah.
That's
Except
that.
me.
Yeah.
Yes. Which probably raises even more questions to him, but yeah. Yeah, he seems to sort of he doesn't seem to sort of want to voice it, but he seems sort of like very curious in who you are, what you're doing here, and why you're like armed to the teeth. Because taking a glance around the bar, like the only people in this bar really who are armed are the Wild Hunt people that just walked in, and even then they're probably only carrying personal weapons and not wearing any armor.
I mean, look at Vondal, he has mithril armor.
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
He looks so
And
good.
Kelariis has got a
It's
magic
so-
sword.
I mean, it looks really fancy right now.
Yes.
Yeah, freedom.
It's not glowing, right? Please do not activate. No.
Imagine if it
And-
activated if anyone said freedom.
That
would be the
that would
worst
be really
thing.
inconvenient.
Freedom. Blinding light. Ah!
Oh shit!
It's only 10 feet of bright light. It's not blinding.
I know, but imagine if you're like somewhere where it's been really dark for ages, like pitch dark, you don't see anything, and then all of a sudden someone accidentally says freedom. Just a sudden light in your face. That would
It's probably like a fluorescent bulb. It probably takes a while to sort of like get to full.
Alright, like
Oh, yeah, like an
flickers
energy
and
cell.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, like an energy
just,
saver where it like
knock it
flickers a bit
against the
first.
thing.
So it
Anyway,
like flickers a bit, then goes on.
Well,
It's a
it
really
probably
annoying sound.
fades in, is what I'm saying.
yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, I guess V sort of like senses that, and I guess she sort of talks about how she is, because of the fact that she's a dryad, she's sort of looking into why there's all of these blights going on in the forest and stuff.
okay. Yeah, you sort of
Not like super in depth.
No, you tell him the brief tale of your adventures, and he seems like he definitely seems to like be taking in everything that you say. And then he sort of when you conclude your story, he sort of nods and says, I guess it makes sense then why you're seeking out Lysatis. I mean, she's probably one of the most knowledgeable druids that I know, particularly in the matters of death and that domain. And then he's like, for a moment, he sort of he looks into his drink for a little period of time before he's like sort of snaps out of his moment and sort of says, "Oh well, excuse me, I will leave you to the rest of your evening. I must go and see my friends," and excuses himself.
Alright.
What a nice man.
Alright. Here we go, boys.
I thought I'd ease you
That's-
into it.
I got some shit to say. Alright.
Oh, okay.
Can I look at V and be like, are you feeling alright, V?
Yeah.
I just noticed that you haven't been casting any spells in the last few battles we've been in. Is there a reason for
He probably sort of like twitches a little bit,
that?
and then just sort of goes like, I've been casting plenty of magic, you know, and the other people were doing stuff, and I stopped them, and I used my little poison.
Right. That still isn't as much as you usually do, though. I know several times when you looked like you were about to cast, and then you didn't. Just wondering if something happened that we should know about.
I mean, you guys were doing fine. It's not like I always need to use my magic.
Can I just give
Okay.
her a look?
Yeah,
Can I
yeah,
insight check that statement?
I just want to point out. At this
Yeah, you
point
can
that-
definitely insight check that.
I just want to point out at this point as well that although Vondal's not saying anything, the start of this conversation he just seemed kind of interested, and now he's looking at V really skeptically.
Yeah.
Do I have
also
to roll
like a,
deception against that, or?
You're purposefully lying, so go for it.
I also get a. Aw,
Cool.
man.
I got
That's
I
fif-
get disadvantage.
15 versus 5.
Wait,
Fuck.
fuck.
I know your secrets.
Yeah, she's clearly holding something back.
V, you're clearly not telling us the truth here. Something happened. This isn't just you deciding not to use it for no reason.
And Arya, you do remember that like this has happened ever since
Right.
Lysatis took
you
her away
talked
for that
to-
conversation.
Ever since you talked to Lysatis, this has been happening. What did she say to you?
Arya, do you remember when back under my grove, when we all got knocked out, and then Lyra turned into Sun?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how we basically got to know that Lyra's not really who she seems?
Right.
What would you have done if Lyra wasn't if Lyra had been someone else, but of course Sun is someone good, right? She's a daughter of Melora, but what if Sun had been a bad person? What would you have done?
But I know Laura. Fuck. I know that Lyra is not a bad person.
No, but I mean, hypothetically, what if it had turned out differently? What would you do?
If she had been a demon instead of a demigod.
I don't know. I suppose...
Would that make you hesitant to carry on using Lyra in our fights? To keep having the help of Lyra around?
Arya's like hella suspicious now, because that is a very odd statement.
Yeah.
But I think Vondal's gonna pipe up and say, "Where are you going with this, Fee?"
Satas told me that the time that the blight started popping up was when a little while before I was born. And so maybe that the person who started poisoning my grove was the person that my mother bonded with. And if that was true, maybe the child coming from that bond would have special powers. So, what do I do if my powers come from the enemy?
I mean, she has no proof of that other than the timing, first of all. And second of all, you are not...
It's true that I don't know where my powers are from. Plenty of people have asked me over the course of, the months that we've been traveling, and even before that, when my family didn't trust me, people have been wondering why I can do these. It would be an explanation.
I don't believe that, even if your powers come from your father, that makes them inherently bad. You use them to help plenty of people.
But maybe it's not the intention. Maybe my family, maybe they were right. Maybe it was something like they're just bad to begin with. Maybe we can't see the consequences. I didn't want to use my powers during all of yesterday, but whenever it came down to it, people started casting spells at you guys, I still panicked, and it's like a habit at this point.
I mean, I just know what I've seen, which is that your powers have saved us more times than I can count. I can't sit here and say that I would really care where they came from at this point, because I know that you will use them for good, and that's what matters. A daughter is not her father.
And using powers that come from a dark source to fight against it just makes it better.
I think it's much more important how your powers are used than where they came from, to be honest. And you've clearly done a lot of good with it.
I'm just worried about the potential side effects.
Evil is not necessarily inherent. Just because something is evil doesn't mean it must do evil.
And we're doing all we can to track down the source of this blight. Hopefully soon we'll get an answer as to where exactly it came from. And free you of this burden. I don't believe that it's just you. I mean, look at the stories we've heard of other places. You haven't even been to those places. How could it be you that is affecting those places?
Yes.
Vondal, can you give me a history check with advantage real quick?
Not a great advantage.
No, okay. At this point, a story comes to your mind, one that is particularly prevalently told in your order, about the persecution and atonement of the Tieflings. because they were considered to be evil by their bloodline, but your order gave them another chance. Through service, they proved they atoned for whatever sin they may have suffered previously and became absolved.
Mm. Yeah, in that case,
Would you like to relate that story?
yeah, I guess, yeah. I don't know how to actually say it though.
Well, yeah, I can tell the story, Singers. I know it better than you do.
Okay, yeah, fair.
Yeah. Okay. So
Story time.
basically, Vondal proceeds to tell you the story of. Let me bring it up in my notes because I can read it to you more clearly that way. But yes, basically Vondal begins to tell you a story that some of you are sort of vaguely familiar with, but Vondal tells it with a lot more conviction and a lot more depth than any of you have ever heard it told before. Yeah. Yes, basically there is a story told amongst the clergy of Palor in a litany known as the Heresy of the 4000. The litany tells of a pact made by the heads of 8 human houses with the archdevil Asmodeus in exchange for power and status. Asmodeus granted them their wishes in exchange for the firstborn daughter of each household. Asmodeus took these daughters as concubines, and from each daughter sired 10 children. From each of these families he also took the firstborn daughter in exchange for the same status. Asmodeus continued this until he had sired 4,000 of these offspring, each with a fragment of his own power. These scions appeared normal to most until Asmodeus grew tired of his games and decided that he wanted more. He demanded that those who benefited from the alliance worship him. When his charges refused, Asmodeus played his hand, transforming all those of his bloodline into terrifying half-devils. To cut a long story short, Palor saw this insurrection by the mortal servants left behind and called his worshippers to arm to drive out the devil children out of their communities. These were the first tieflings, and were chased from place to place, hunted by the faith, persecuted by the dragonborn, and even pushed out by other races who feared the evil influences in their societies. And it was not until the interference of the Order of the Golden Lion that tieflings found a place in society. Torm's followers arranged for tieflings to be given shelter under the conditions that those who were sheltered give up all of their wealth and status and become indentured servants. Yeah, so effectively the tieflings were granted absolution through their deeds rather than their heritage. As Vondal's voice peters away, a small silence covers the table.
Just point being, V, it doesn't matter from where these powers come. It's all about how they're used.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, you have demonstrated that these powers are very much in the hands of someone who can do plenty of good and will continue to do good.
Okay. But maybe someday I'd still like to know for sure where they come from. Because
That's
it
fair
is
enough.
something that a lot of people have questioned, and I have tried to sort of ignore the question, and when I heard an answer, I didn't really want it. So
Well, then we'll add it to our to-do list.
Yes, if we can help you find out, we'll gladly do so.
I'll ignore it for now, but maybe someday we can look into it.
Gotta have something to do when this is all over.
Epic Origins quest.
Right?
Hooray!
On the subject of your current quest, I think you have another point to make, don't you, Arya?
Yeah, so I have a lot of stuff to talk about, guys.
This is new.
What?
Sass.
Are you talking?
I know, right?
Right?
I'm not just brooding in a corner
I
somewhere.
was gonna say, Arya's opening up to us, guys.
I'm not really opening up.
You-
This is like none of this is about me, really.
You find yourself
Sort of.
checking Arya's cup to see how much she's actually had to drink.
But anyway, so I've been noticing something that's been happening for a while with the race shard. Whenever I have it in my possession, even if I have a nightmare, it doesn't affect me in the same way. I'm aware that I'm having a nightmare, and I'm aware that I'm awake, or like asleep even. That being said, they don't affect me in the same way as you all. And especially after recent events, I think it'd be best if I was given the race shard every night, seeing as it no longer affects me.
Are you sure about this?
Quite sure. Every time it's happened, it's almost like I'm watching it from as if from a distance. I'm aware that I am asleep, and I'm aware that this is not real.
Like lucid dreaming.
Yeah. Son's there. It's great.
Oh. Well, at least I guess you've been keeping in touch with her.
Yeah, it's odd. Neither of us can really figure why it's happening, but she agrees that it doesn't seem to be affecting me anymore.
So you don't know why this has happened.
No. It just started happening. Doesn't make the connection between my
No.
almost death and that. But it's been happening for so long that I feel as if it's not going to go away anytime soon.
As long as you tell us as soon as it does.
Yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
sure to, but for now it seems to be just fine.
Very well, if this is what you wish.
I don't
I just-
necessarily love the idea of giving you all of the burden, but I also can't exactly.
Well, I just think that if I'm sort of immune to the effects, it makes sense for me to be the one to have it instead of putting that burden on you. We've all felt the devastating effects of this shard. And if I can abate that for some of you, then I shall. Oh my god, Arya's being like nice. Shit.
How
We're-
much
What's
I
we're-
going
can
we're-
on?
We're starting to get to her.
I know, right?
And when I say we, I mean V.
drink.
What?
I don't know, Kelariis is like dream really like it's like shit, I need to like take responsibility for this. Look, me and Kelariis are like bros. We're good.
Lars is bros with
Bros.
everyone though.
It's true.
Yeah.
But it's like
Claris is
But, like,
everyone's bro.
Lars just has like a bro-like quality.
yeah.
Wow.
Claris is the bro.
The
bro.
OG.
The OG.
The OGB.
OGB.
Wow.
God. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up since seems to be the time to do it.
If this
Alright.
is truly what you want.
Yep. Okay, I think that's everything I had to talk about. So.
And end of conversation.
End of that conversation, apparently.
Well, if anyone else feels like embracing the spirit of openness and kinship, then go ahead. But otherwise...
Talk about your feelings.
Let's talk
Does
about
anyone else have anything to add to the circle?
You are safe here. It's a safe space.
Pass the shard around the table. Whoever has the shard gets to
Oh
talk.
my god.
No, that's what we're trying to
Bad
avoid.
idea.
The opposite of what we want to do.
Don't want to do that in public.
This is a safe space. Kelariis is here to give free hugs.
Aw. Buff
Aw.
dragon mom hugs.
Oh, that's the best kind of hug.
Okay, well, if none of you have anything else you want to talk about, now would be the time to get yourselves a room and get some sleep.
Let's get ourselves a
Yep.
room and get some sleep.
Okay. So yes, the Autumn Wyvern is not fantastically expensive, so if you guys want to expend 5 silver per person per night.
Oh wow, it's cheap.
Alrighty.
Cheap, cheap. So that's 2 gold.
Yep.
2 gold total.
I can pay for that. I
Alright.
got all the muns.
Yeah, but we're
Thanks,
just taking
Arya.
5 silver off of each of us.
Alright.
Whoops.
5 silver is not going to make a dent in any of your bank accounts.
No. I just like to imagine that Arya just has this big fuck off bag of gold. Just carries it around.
They've probably got several pouches in her backpack.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, remember as well that gold, every single gold you have is not necessarily a coin. There are denominations of coin.
Also, I have rocks.
Yes.
Okay.
Also pretty
Rocks.
shells. You also have pretty shells now.
Yeah.
True.
It's a shame we don't have a rock lobster.
A rock lobster. Fuck you, Kev.
Anyway.
What?
Anyway.
Anyway.
Moving swiftly onward.
Yeah, so if Arya is always going to have the shard from now on, there isn't really... Actually, no, I tell a lie. There is a point to you rolling.
I
In
might.
case you roll a natural one.
Because
Yeah,
you
it's like I
might,
might
you
critically
may
fail
crit
it.
fail.
This is when I crit fails on this night and we all go,
Ah!
is this really a good idea?
So, yeah, give me
Give me a
your
save.
save.
Nah, I'm good, guys.
Cool.
Look at that 19.
Lit-
Boom.
literally nothing happens.
I just have a nice, peaceful meditation. It's great.
Literally nothing has happened, guys. The world has ended. Nothing is happening.
Oh dear.
Oh, that's
Too bad.
unfortunate.
Literally nothing is happening. That's it. Game over.
Whatever.
Nothing is everywhere.
Nothing is nowhere. When? Never.
Anyway. Time for a different time.
God damn it.
No!
The time being the next morning, as you wake up.
Mm.
You wake up.
Oh, I still have 35 hit points. Hold on.
Oh yes, you need to
Oh, right,
fix
yeah.
your HP. Although, those of you who leveled up, I think I actually corrected your HP, so you don't need to
Oh,
put it
right.
back down again.
I was like, yeah, my HP is suddenly max again, which is not what I thought was happening.
There's also
Yes.
stuff I'm gonna...
Make sure to refresh yourselves being fully rested.
I just get to rejig stuff.
Oh yes, because you want to change your spells around.
Yeah, I'm gonna rejig some spells while we do this.
Yeah.
Like a bit.
Claris, if you want to do the same, then go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna look through my stuff. Oh, whoa, the spell page changed.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah, the character sheet's updated in Roll 20.
Yes, they did, and they're very nice.
Yeah, I had not seen the spell page.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
They are very,
So good.
very, very helpful because now you don't need to expand it to see what the components are and whether it's concentration and whether you can ritual cast it.
Yeah.
That's
I know, it's
pretty
great,
awesome.
isn't it?
Yes. Oh yes, and don't forget if you are those of you who get domain spells that are always active, your domain spells are now all denoted with an asterisk. So don't ever turn off the ones that have got asterisks because they are permanently on and don't count towards your total.
Yeah, I've been doing that.
Oh yeah, I have my my asterisky spells.
Yes.
Bet your butts up an asterisk in my spells.
I think I can't remember if Arya does as well because you get your Misty Step, but I think I've just put Misty Step in your cantrips. Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's a cantrip.
Well, because it's not
On my
a
character
cantrip,
sheet.
but
Well,
it's,
no, I know what you're saying. Though.
it's
It
there
is a
so that you don't
cantrip on my
so that you don't forget.
So you don't remember it. Okay, I'll forget it.
Right.
Can't believe.
Yeah, one
Okay.
third level spell slot. It's a momentous occasion.
So, yeah, with that, your day is done. Well, your expedition is done. So you can do with the rest of your time what you wish. Lysassus did mention that it was going to take her a couple of days. She perhaps wasn't quite expecting you to succeed quite so quickly.
Obviously,
One
she's
day,
not aware of our reputation.
2
Yes.
days.
Well, that and you have a ranger who has supernatural assistance on locating things, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are the dream team for locating things and putting them down.
So what do we do?
I mean, Kelariis has a magic stick that lets her locate things, so...
Also that.
True.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think it only locates people, but...
I also think it's only people, but that's still pretty good.
Yeah, you can locate creatures or detect thoughts.
I mean, technically, I could prep locate object.
Same.
We could both do it anyway. Anyway, let's go back to the druid circle.
You want to head straight back.
I mean, what are we gonna do there while we're there, while the things aren't
Talk to
searched yet?
people?
Talk to people.
I don't
mean-
know.
Well, you have a handful of days to do whatever it is that you want to do. So where you do that is entirely up to you, and what you do in that is entirely up to you.
We could fill our days with sparring matches.
We could.
We could.
I could teach you how to properly sword fight.
Let's
Also
do it.
that.
Oh my god, that'd be
Yeah,
fun.
let's go.
Okay.
I wish to teach V how to sword fight.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there's not enough time to actually give her proficiency
I know.
in any kind of
Yeah.
sword, but
But we could
you
start.
can
Yeah, we can
lay
get
the
started.
groundwork.
Yeah. Eventually, we will give proficiency in scimitars.
Oh, it'll be so good.
That's the next level.
Eventually, we'll all give her one proficiency. So you'll get proficiency in scimitars from
From me.
Arya, long
Warhammers.
swords from Kelariis, and warhammers from Vondal.
Oh my
Catch
god.
a
Can you
beast.
imagine
V with a
Warhammer?
warhammer. That's
That'd be
amazing.
amazing.
That is the best one, let's be honest. V with a warhammer.
God, that'd be fucking terrifying, actually.
That'd be
I would
great.
love to see that.
There'd be nothing wrong with that.
Mm.
Cool. So you want to spend a day sort of drilling and practicing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna do some sparring matches.
Sparring, yes.
Woohoo!
Kelariis can actually fight people this time.
I know.
Hooray!
Oh yeah, you don't have to
I'm so
you don't
excited.
get a blood rage.
I don't have to remove the curse of the sword temporarily.
Yeah.
So excited about this.
I mean, you guys can make some tests if you'd like. You
Yes.
actually have a
Yeah.
match.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
we're active in matches.
Cool, go for it. Decide who wants
what are
to.
we rolling?
Yo,
Well, yeah. Well, obviously, like V and I are going because they're teaching.
Right.
Well,
They're doing laying groundwork.
make your weapons test with basically like a non-magical weapon.
okay.
So my quarterstaff. Can I
My
just
hammer.
roll my quarterstaff?
Well, who are you fighting first?
That's true.
I guess it's V versus Arya.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, well that's a miss.
Well, the first round specifically very clearly goes to Arya.
God dang
Sup,
it.
my dudes.
Round 2. Fight.
I just want one hit on you. That's all I want.
Are we going again?
Yep.
That's not a hit. That's actually worse.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I
This
feel
is
like
a good
Arya
bit
just
of
taps
fun.
me on the head like every
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, just a little boop.
pops you in the head.
Just like a classy sidestep and just like
Yeah.
taps me on the head with a stick, and I'm just like,
And I'm like, keep your guard up.
Yeah.
Arya's a really harsh teacher. that's what
Jackie,
I'm
one more ting.
oh my god.
So that's a 4, a 3, and a 5. As far as the rolls go.
Arya,
Yep.
please.
I rolled 2 20s, or 2 19s, even.
Jesus.
Fucking hell.
Cries.
Cool.
2 19s and a 12.
Nice rolls.
I mean, I could have gone a little bit easier on you and used my longsword, I guess. That's plus 5.
Yeah,
still,
you wouldn't have got the dex bonus from it.
so. LOL.
It's only plus 5.
Hmm.
Lol. Only plus 5.
Right.
Only plus 5.
Only plus
Yeah.
5.
Arya makes a great show of sort of just every attack that you pull, she like knocks you aside and then just like grabs you or just like taps you with the hilt, and it's just sort of like, not quite.
Oh.
Look, you're learning
You-
important skills.
You do learn a handful of things from it though.
Yeah, just give you some pointers.
Maybe I should just practice some more magic.
Yeah, hold on.
Give them a magic off.
Magic.
Anybody else want to go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does everyone want to just fight me?
No, well,
Oh, are we
not necessarily
fighting me or are we fighting each other?
You're fighting whoever you want.
I want to spar with Kelariis.
Go for it.
Okay,
Okay, let's do this.
let's go.
No, this is going to be everyone spars with Kelariis. That's what this is going to be, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
guys, look!
That's a bad roll.
It
Guys, I
is.
did it.
That is
I
not
landed a
great
blow.
roll.
Arya pulls quite an elaborate sort of dodge and weave routine against Kelariis's like long and powerful strokes, and manages to sort of nip under your guard and catch you. Seems pretty happy with herself.
I'm very pleased. Oh man,
Very,
Kelariis.
very pleased.
Alright, let's go again.
Alrighty, let's go. I don't have my.
Aw, shit.
Oh, shit.
That was close though.
It's close.
Yeah. So Kelariis sort of punishes your mobility a little bit more this time. Comes sort of like in with some wide sort of swings and sort of eventually just sort of like crushes her way through your defenses with her superior strength.
Ha. I'd die.
It's one round each.
Everything.
Oh!
Wow.
Shit, son.
There's only one thing that can beat that.
there's
Yeah,
no
no.
way.
Okay, so as you go for the next one, you sort of you go for another one of your sort of like undercutting lunges, and just as you think you've got her, Kelariis sort of drops slightly down and just like sweeps the legs from underneath you, and you just go flat. And then you like as you sort of like hit the ground, you're about to try and stand up, and you just feel like the weight of sword on your neck, just like I win.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Kelariis is
The
like
idea of
very
me actually
clearly-
beating Kelariis is kind
Hey,
of
it could happen.
It's
It
almost
could
as...
happen.
It's about as likely as you beating Grim in a fist fight.
Yep.
I don't know how well that...
Well, without dog, yes. But
Without
the whole
dog.
point is you have dog.
I have dog.
If-
Our
Arya has
dog.
If
I
dog
have
was
a
helping,
your wolf.
My wolf.
Kelariis is having a fucking blast, by the way.
Nice.
Loving this.
Alright, are we doing any other matches?
Oh.
That's
I don't
some
know.
dice rolls.
sorry, yeah,
Ignore
carry
the rolls.
on.
Are we doing any other matches?
Yeah, come on, Kelariis.
Okay. Are we going this time?
Hey, you said we
Okay.
were gonna fight. We
Okay.
were there next time.
Yeah, this is
Great
this
then.
is harder for both of you because both of you are quite good at fighting.
Yeah, we're both meant to be melee fighters.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
you're
true.
both heavily armored as well.
I'm still only a +6.
Go for round one.
Oh shit.
Oh,
Ah.
shit.
You,
Old man Vondal.
you both sort of like skirt around each other, like blocking with shields and keeping your respective guards up. Eventually, sort of Vondal, with the advantage of being considerably shorter, sort of just he lands several strong blows with the warhammer, which eventually just causes you to drop your guard for a moment, Kelariis, and he just sort of like taps you on the arm. Round 1.
Round 1. Right, Kelariis, let's try not to roll shit this time. No.
Okay.
Oh man.
Yeah, saw that one coming.
Thank God for not disadvantage.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kelariis, you go for a again the more aggressive stance that you favour, and just sort of try to put Vondal as much on the back foot as you can. And whilst it is sort of hard to like land a good blow on him while he is sort of turtling behind his shield, you realise actually that you can make use of his shorter legs by just pushing him backwards every time you swing, which forces him to backstep and puts him at a disadvantage. And eventually, like, you sort of manage to get through, and you manage to sort of like tap him on the shoulder a couple of times and claim the second round.
Damn.
Arya and V, as you're sort of watching this, you notice that actually your activities are beginning to sort of gather a crowd.
You're here to see that impressive sword play.
Well, V was sort of like,
Oh,
while
boy.
the others were...
Oh shit!
Nice.
Nice, Vondal.
Damn.
The kids, how it's done.
Well, I was gonna say, while the others were sort of sparring, V was probably sort of kind of working on a little bit of magic, and she was sort of like snapping her fingers around and sort of like trying to generate a little bit of like lightning between her fingers.
Yeah. Give me an Arcana check.
Fails.
Oh, I'm just trying my new spell, guys.
Actually, no. It wouldn't be an Arcana check.
Oh.
Too late.
Modify that not to use your intelligence, but to use your charisma.
That would be like +1.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It takes you like a number of attempts, but every now and again you get a spark.
God damn it.
I don't really want to test my new spell because.
Every now and then you get a spark.
Wow.
Wow.
But yes, like as the sort of the crowd around you is sort of like becoming like decently sized, Vondal, you sort of knowing that Kelariis sort of wants to push you back, you decide that right, well, two can play at that game, and you consistently sort of like go for Kelariis' shins and force her to step away from you, and you find that you can actually keep this momentum going quite well because Kelariis' stride is quite big, and that the habit of her is to go backwards as far as she can, so you can actually put her off balance like fairly routinely. And she tries to bring the sword down on you, and you actually manage to trap the sword under your warhammer and softly give her a sort of like a what would ordinarily be a gut punch, so more of a gut tap with the edge of your shield to claim victory in the third round.
Sweet.
And sort of you look up and you become aware that you've gathered a crowd of quite a number of villagers and more than a number of guardsmen.
Oh.
Oops. Are they mad at us, or are they just...
No,
watching?
they seem to be just thoroughly in awe of your abilities.
Alright.
I sort of whisper to Arya, I'm not fighting you guys while other people are watching. That's gonna be embarrassing.
Yeah, Vondal's just now just indifferent.
I mean, Vondal, you're probably just like, what are you looking at? Get back to guarding things, because
Yeah, probably.
that's your.
Don't be rude, Vondal.
Don't you all have jobs?
Oh my God.
Well, remember he was a drill sergeant for Town Watch.
Sure.
Like he's done that for most of his life.
For like 75 years.
Yeah.
It's like 3 times longer than you've been on this earth.
Hey now. It's a lot more than
I mean,
3 times.
do you want to say that to
Yeah.
them?
No,
No. Okay.
no, not a chance. He's more polite than that. He just thinks it to himself.
Yeah. I'm thinking I'm the guy that does his job, so I'm thinking you're the other
You're
one.
the other one.
Yeah, exactly.
At the same time, I want to test out my new spell, like, fully, but letting that off in, like,
In a populated area would be a terrible, terrible
It would be
idea.
a
Because
terrible
it does not
big
discriminate
idea.
between friend and foe.
Bad idea.
Well, we might sort of hop out of town then a little bit, or, like, at least away from where people are. I want to try it.
Yeah, you can do that.
Are we having another? Is there going to be another fight then, or?
Oh no, she's testing out her spell. Oh right, between us.
Yeah, there's
I
still
mean, you
three
could-
of us here.
You can do that if you want.
Alright, Vondal. Let's
Alright.
fucking go.
Come on.
Do it.
We've already had one fight.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, good start.
Shit.
Okay. Yeah, Arya, fighting Vondal is kind of difficult, particularly because his battle stance very much favors sort of like a. Well, he very effectively sort of turtles, using his small stature to his advantage and the fact that he is heavily armored. So he sort of he sits behind his shield most of the time, and you desperately try to sort of like knock his shield aside so you can swing, but then you have to dodge the incoming hammer, and like yeah, he gets like a couple of sort of swings in that sort of force you to sort of jump backwards before he eventually just sort of like lands one on your torso.
Oh man. I'm not doing well, guys.
Wow.
Oh shit.
This is it. It's going to come to actual combat now, and I'm not going to hit anything.
Yeah, you're spending all your good rolls, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're tempting fate here.
he goes full no mercy in the second round and is just constantly going for your knees, and eventually he sort of gets them, and you're just sort of left with that ringing sensation in your leg as he just sort of like taps you on the side, and it's just like, ow, that was a lot harder than it should have been.
I'm
Motherfucker.
sorry. It's hard.
One last round for recovery. Recover your honor.
Three.
Oh,
Oh,
that
shit.
one's a lot better.
Yeah.
Ah!
Oh.
Honor recovered.
Yes.
Revenge!
You managed to recover sort of in the third round, and just sort of now that you've learned that he favors sort of like the low turtling stance, you instead of trying to sort of instead of trying to outspeed him, you just use your longer stride to sort of outmaneuver him, just sort of like getting in around his side and going for his sort of exposed weapon arm, and eventually you get a cutting swing to sort of like the back of his arm and claim victory.
All in all, Vondal showing why he teaches people how to fight.
Yes.
Because he's damn good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, V managed to find sort of like a secluded place to practice your spell, and yeah, it's about as devastating as you expect. It ravages the small clearing that you cast in, like uprooting a number of bushes with just strong winds, and
No, the bushes.
It's okay, Druidcraft them back.
you can put them back again.
Yeah, I'll put it back.
Just Druidcraft the clearing.
You tear up a bunch of bushes, get distressed by the fact that you've torn up the bushes, and then spend 25 minutes druid crafting the bushes back into their things,
Nice.
petting them and apologizing.
The
Oh my
best
God,
sorcerer.
That's adorable.
The best sorcerer.
The best. The absolute best.
We're just
Yeah.
the best team. Enough said.
Yeah, you spend a large portion of your day practicing various aspects of your swordplay and other abilities.
And such.
I mean, if we're approaching being able to, like, actually go to the Shadowfell, gotta be ready.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'll be ready.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We'll be ready.
Do our characters, like, actually realize how close we are to this?
Not yet, but you will do.
Oh,
Gasp.
I already did the gasp.
Okay. So, do you want to do anything else with what's left of your day, or just have a break?
I guess it's just break time, because Vondal would like a drink after all that hard work.
Okay. Cool.
Hard work
Yeah.
pays off.
Haha.
You break for the evening, and I guess you probably go and get something to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Eat, have some ale.
Well, in that case, expend a gold per person for a day's food and rest for the evening. And we will take a short IRL break.
Woo.
Ah,